Jake Morrison stood at the tall windows of the Galactic Council building, watching the busy traffic of alien ships moving through the space lanes around Station Unity. The massive station floated in the empty space between star systems, a neutral meeting place for all the species in the galaxy. Jake had been Earth's main representative here for 12 years now, and he still found it amazing to watch so many different kinds of beings working together. A soft chime made him turn around. His assistant, a thin blue alien called Veltar, approached with a datapad in his four-fingered hands. The Velthari were one of the more nervous species in the galaxy, always worried about something going wrong. "Ambassador Morrison, the morning reports are ready," Veltar said in his high voice. "There are 3 new trade disputes, 2 border disagreements, and the Thalorians are complaining about human medical practices again." Jake smiled and took the datapad. "What's their problem this time?" "They say human doctors are too aggressive in their treatments. They want the council to ban humans from practicing medicine on other species." Jake almost laughed. The Thalorians thought everything humans did was too aggressive. They came from a peaceful world where the biggest predator was about the size of a house cat. They had never learned to fight, never had to struggle to survive. To them, even a human handshake seemed violent. "I'll handle it," Jake said. "Schedule a meeting with Ambassador Thekmur for this afternoon. We'll work something out." This was how things worked in the galaxy. Every species had their own way of doing things, their own fears and worries. The humans had learned to be patient, to listen, to find solutions that made everyone happy. It was not always easy, but it was the right thing to do. Jake's communication device buzzed. A message from Captain Lisa Carter appeared on the screen. Her face looked tired, but she was smiling. "Morning, Jake. Just wanted to let you know we finished the rescue operation at Kepler Station. All 237 survivors are safe. The Dromaxi are very grateful. Their ship would have been completely destroyed if we hadn't arrived when we did." Jake felt proud as he watched the message. Lisa and her crew on the UES Horizon had saved thousands of lives over the past 5 years. They were always the first to respond when someone was in trouble, always ready to help. The galaxy had learned to count on humans like Lisa. The truth was, humans had a reputation in the galaxy that made Jake both proud and a little sad. Other species saw them as the helpers, the peacekeepers, the ones who would always try to solve problems without violence. They were right, but they didn't understand why Earth was what the galaxy called a Class 12 death world. It was a planet where everything was trying to kill everything else. The weather was violent, the animals were dangerous, and the humans who lived there had to be tough just to survive. Most species were amazed that anything intelligent could come from such a terrible place, but the galaxy had gotten humans wrong. They thought Earth's harshness had made humans gentle by comparison. They thought humans were peaceful because they were weak. They had no idea that humans were peaceful because they chose to be. Jake walked to his office, thinking about the early days when humans first joined the galactic community. Earth's leaders had made a decision that changed everything. They had looked at their own bloody history, at all the wars and violence and suffering, and decided that humanity could be better. They would not be the conquerors. They would not be the bullies. They would be the protectors. This decision had not been easy. Human ships were built for war, even if they were used for peace. Human soldiers trained for battle, even if they spent their time rescuing civilians. Human technology could destroy planets, even if it was used to save them. But the choice had been made, and humans had kept their word for over 2 centuries. Dr. Alex Turner was a perfect example of this. He worked on the research station New Geneva, spending his days trying to cure diseases that affected dozens of different species. Jake had visited Alex a few months ago, and found him working 20-hour days to help develop a treatment for a plague that was killing the Moralians. "Why do you push yourself so hard?" Jake had asked him. Alex had looked up from his research, his eyes red from exhaustion. "Because I can help," he said. "Because I have the knowledge and the tools, and these people are dying. How can I not try?" That was the human way. They helped because they could help. They protected because they were strong enough to protect. They chose to be gentle because they knew how terrible the alternative could be. Jake sat down at his desk and started going through the morning reports. Most of them were routine. The Crystalline Collective wanted to adjust their trade agreement with the Altarians. The Zephyrians were having problems with space pirates near their border. The Kaelari were requesting more human teachers for their schools, but one report made Jake stop and read more carefully. It was from the Outer Rim, where the Vortakian hegemony had been expanding their territory. The Vortakians were an insect-like species that believed in conquest and slavery. They have been growing stronger and more aggressive over the past few years. According to the report, Vortakian ships had been spotted near the borders of several peaceful species. The hegemony was testing defenses, looking for weakness. They were planning something big. Jake sent a message to the Council's military committee, requesting an emergency meeting. This was exactly the kind of situation that required careful attention. The Vortakians were dangerous, and the peaceful species of the Outer Rim needed protection. 2 hours later, Jake sat in the council chamber, surrounded by representatives from over 100 different species. The chamber was a massive dome filled with seats designed for every kind of alien body. Some species breathed different gases, so their sections were sealed off with their own atmosphere. Others needed special gravity fields or temperature controls. The Vortakian threat is real, Jake said, standing at the central podium. They have been building up their military for years. Intelligence reports suggest they are planning to attack multiple peaceful worlds at the same time. A murmur went through the chamber. Many of the representatives looked worried, but Jake noticed that some looked skeptical. The Thalorians, in particular, seemed to think he was being too dramatic. Ambassador Thekmer stood up in his section. The human representative is being too hasty, he said in his calm voice. The Vortakians are certainly aggressive, but they have not actually attacked anyone yet. We should try diplomacy first. Diplomacy works best when backed by strength, Jake replied. The Vortakians only understand power. We need to show them that the galaxy will not tolerate their aggression. And what do you suggest? Asked Ambassador Zeltara of the Altarian Republic. Military action? That seems very human of you. Jake felt a flash of anger at the comment, but he controlled it. This was another thing about humans that other species misunderstood. They thought human suggestions for military action came from aggression, not from understanding what was necessary to protect the innocent. I suggest we position defensive fleets near the threatened worlds, Jake said. We show the Vortakians that their actions will have consequences. We protect the peaceful species while giving the hegemony a chance to reconsider. The debate went on for hours. Some species wanted to try sanctions first. Others wanted to form a committee to study the problem. A few wanted to send diplomats to negotiate with the Vortakians. Very few wanted to actually do anything that might stop the coming attack. Finally, a vote was called. The motion to deploy defensive fleets was defeated by a vote of 847 to 1. Only Earth voted in favor. Jake watched the vote tally appear on the main screen and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The galaxy was about to learn a terrible lesson about the cost of inaction. The peaceful species of the Outer Rim were going to suffer because the Council preferred committees to action. That night, Jake sat in his quarters and composed a message to Earth. It was a simple message, but it would change everything. He used an old code that had not been activated in over 2 centuries. The kids are in danger, and the adults won't help. He sent the message and then sat back in his chair, watching the stars through his window. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would discover what humans were really capable of when they stopped holding back. 3 weeks after the council vote, the first reports came in. The Vortakian hegemony had struck without warning, just as Jake Morrison had predicted. But it was worse than anyone had imagined. Commander Rick Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The peaceful world of Caliph was burning. The Kaelari people, who had never known war, were being systematically rounded up by Vortakian forces. Their beautiful cities of crystal and light were being torn apart by massive harvester ships. Sir, We're receiving distress signals from 17 different locations on the planet, reported Lieutenant Beth Collins, his communications officer. Her voice was steady, but Rick could see the anger in her eyes. The Kalari are begging for help. They say the Vortakians are separating families, taking the young ones first. Rick's hands tightened on the command rail. The Kalari were philosophers and artists, a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting their understanding of beauty and truth. They had no weapons, no military, no way to fight back. They were like children being attacked by monsters. What about the Galactic Council? Rick asked, though he already knew the answer. They're calling for an emergency session, Beth replied. Estimated time to reach a decision is 72 hours minimum. The Thalorians are insisting on a full diplomatic review first. 72 hours. In that time, thousands of innocent beings would be enslaved or killed. Rick had seen what the Vortakians did to their prisoners. They used pain as a tool, breaking the spirits of other species before putting them to work in their industrial complexes. Even the children were not spared. "Sir," called out Ensign Danny Park from the sensor station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Vortakian fleet. They have a dreadnought in orbit and at least 30 escort ships. They're running a full planetary capture operation." Rick studied the display. The Vortakian fleet was positioned perfectly to defend against any rescue attempt. Their dreadnought, a ship called the Conquest, was 3 times the size of the Defender. Even if Rick could somehow get past the escorts, he would be outgunned and destroyed within minutes. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that innocent people were suffering while the galaxy talked about forming committees. "Communications, open a channel to Earth Command," Rick ordered. "Priority Alpha, use the emergency codes." Beth's fingers flew over her controls. "Channel open, sir. Command is responding." The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Kate Stevens, the head of Earth's military forces. Her face was grim as she looked at the tactical data Rick was sending. "Commander Hayes, I'm seeing the situation at Keleth. How bad is it?" "It's exactly what Ambassador Morrison warned about, Admiral. The Vortakians are enslaving the entire population. They're taking children first, using them as leverage against their parents. The Galactic Council is still debating what to do." Admiral Stevens was quiet for a long moment. Rick could see her thinking, weighing options that no one should have to consider. Finally, she spoke. "Rick, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. If we activate Protocol 7, if we take the gloves off, can you live with what happens next?" Protocol 7. Rick had heard of it, but never seen it used. It was the authorization for humanity to stop pretending to be weak. It was permission to show the galaxy what Earth's children were really capable of when they stopped holding back. "Admiral, I've been watching Kalari children being dragged away from their families for the past 6 hours. I've been listening to their parents beg for mercy from creatures that don't understand the concept. Yes, I can live with what happens next." "Then stand by for new orders. Stevens out." The connection closed, leaving Rick staring at the tactical display. Around him, his crew continued their work, but he could feel the tension building. Everyone knew something was about to change. On Earth, President Dan Miller was called out of a meeting about agricultural policy. He walked quickly to the secure command center deep beneath the Capitol, where the Global Defense Council was already gathering. The representatives came from every nation, every major city, every branch of human government. "Report," Miller said as he took his seat at the head of the oval table. General Patricia Ross, the head of Earth's military, brought up a holographic display showing the attack on Keleth. "The Vortakian hegemony has begun their expansion. They've hit 3 peaceful worlds in the past week. Intelligence suggests they're planning to attack 12 more within the month." "What about the Galactic Council?" asked Dr. Susan Walsh, the head of the diplomatic corps. "They're still debating. The vote to take action failed 847 to 1. Only we voted to help." Miller looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leaders. These were people who had spent their entire careers trying to be better than their ancestors. They had built a civilization based on cooperation, protection, and peace. But they were also the leaders of a species that had clawed its way up from the bottom of the food chain on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. Protocol 7 has been requested by our field commanders, General Ross continued. They want authorization to engage the Vortakians with full capability. If we do this, there's no going back, warned Dr. Walsh. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Miller nodded. Susan's right. For 200 years, we've been the helpful neighbors. We've been the ones who fix problems, who rescue people, who try to find peaceful solutions. If we activate Protocol 7, we become something else. What do we become? Asked Representative Carlos Mendez. We become what we always were, Miller replied. We become the apex predators of a death world that decided to be civilized. The question is, are we willing to be uncivilized to protect the innocent? The debate that followed was intense but brief. Every representative had access to the live feeds from Caliph. They could see the Kalari families being torn apart, the children being loaded into transport ships, the beautiful cities being stripped of everything valuable. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. Protocol 7 is hereby activated, President Miller announced. All safety restrictions are lifted. All capability limits are removed. Humanity is weapons-free. The message went out instantly to every human ship, every human base, every human commander in the galaxy. Along with the authorization came a single additional line. The gloves are off. Back on the UES Defender, Rick Hayes received the new orders with a mixture of relief and dread. Relief because he could finally act. Dread because he knew what was about to happen. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have received new orders from Earth Command. Protocol 7 is now active. We are going to rescue the Kalari people from the Vortakian fleet. He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. These were good people, humans who had spent their careers helping others. They deserved to know what they were about to become. For 2 centuries, we've been holding back. We've been pretending to be weak so that other species wouldn't be afraid of us. Today that ends. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the innocent in front of Earth's children. Rick turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Garcia, bring all weapons online. Full power to all systems. Drop the limiters. Sir, are you sure? The power output will be visible to every ship in the system. That's the point, Lieutenant. I want them to see what we really are. The Defender began to change. Hidden weapon ports opened along its hull. The main reactor, which had been running at 30% capacity for safety reasons, ramped up to full power. Energy shields that had been designed to look weak suddenly blazed with enough power to stop a planet-killer weapon on the Vortakian dreadnought Conquest. Admiral Starr was reviewing the capture operations when his sensor officer called out in alarm. Admiral, the human ship is powering up. I'm reading energy signatures that don't match our intelligence reports. Starr looked at the display, his compound eyes widening. That's impossible. Human ships are barely capable of fighting a single cruiser. Sir, the energy readings suggest their reactor is producing more power than our entire fleet combined. Before Starr could respond, the Defender opened fire. The weapons that had been hidden for 2 centuries revealed themselves. Beams of energy that could crack moons lanced out across space, striking the Vortakian escort ships. The escorts didn't just explode. They were vaporized, turned into clouds of superheated plasma in the space of seconds. Impossible, Starr whispered as his fleet died around him. The humans are supposed to be weak. The Conquest, the pride of the Vortakian fleet, the ship that had conquered 40 worlds, lasted exactly 93 seconds against the Defender. As the rescue shuttles launched toward Caliph, Rick Hayes opened a channel to the Galactic Council. This is Commander Rick Hayes of the UES Defender. The Kalari people are under our protection. Any ship that threatens them will be destroyed. The age of human patience is over. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that had spent decades running humanitarian missions were revealing their true nature. The UES Mercy, a hospital ship, deployed enough firepower to destroy a battle fleet. The UES Explorer, supposedly a research vessel, turned a Vortakian. Supply depot into cosmic dust. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer holding back. The news of what happened at Calith spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the same incredible story. The humans, the peaceful humans who had spent 2 centuries helping other species, had destroyed an entire Vortakian fleet with a single ship. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the main chamber of the Galactic Council, watching the chaos unfold around him. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting at each other, demanding explanations, calling for emergency votes. The carefully ordered world of galactic politics had been turned upside down in 93 seconds. "Order! Order!" called Outspeaker Velthara, the ancient crystalline being who led the council sessions. Her voice rang like crystal bells, but even she was struggling to control the panic. "We must have calm discussion about these events." "Calm discussion?" roared Ambassador Kresh of the Draconian Empire. "The humans just revealed they've been lying to us for 2 centuries. They have weapons that can destroy our entire fleet." "The humans saved innocent lives," replied Ambassador Zaltara of the Altarian Republic. "The Kelari people are alive because of their actions." "That's not the point," Kresh shot back. "The point is that we've been sharing space with a species that could have conquered us all at any time." Jake watched the arguments continue, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and satisfaction. The galaxy was finally seeing humanity for what it really was, but the reaction was exactly what Earth's leaders had feared. Terror, anger, and distrust. "Ambassador Morrison," Speaker Velthara called out, "the Council demands an explanation. How long have humans possessed this level of military capability?" Jake stepped forward to the central podium. The chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. He had given thousands of speeches in this room, but none had ever felt as important as this one. "Since before we joined the galactic community," he said simply. "Since before we met any of you." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the chamber. Jake raised his hand for silence. "The ships you saw today are not new. The weapons are not new. The technology is not new. What is new is our willingness to use them. You've been deceiving us," accused Ambassador Thekmor of the Thalorians. "You've been pretending to be weak while secretly plotting to dominate us." "No," Jake replied, his voice firm. "We've been pretending to be weak because we didn't want to scare you. We've been holding back because we chose to be better than our ancestors." "And what happens now?" asked Ambassador Murdoch of the Aquarian. "Federation? Now that you've revealed your true nature, what are your intentions?" Jake looked around the chamber at the faces of beings he had worked with for years. Some looked angry, some looked afraid, but a few looked curious. Those were the ones who might understand. "Our intentions haven't changed," he said. "We still want to help. We still want to protect the innocent. We still want to be your friends. But we will no longer ask permission to do what is right." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Vortakian hegemony was dealing with its own crisis. Emperor Vorthak sat in his throne room on the capital world of Vorthak Prime, surrounded by his military advisors. The massive insectoid ruler was known for his calm demeanor, but today his claws were clicking nervously against his throne. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked General Thrix, his chief military commander. 17 fleets, my emperor." "The humans have struck at every one of our expansion operations simultaneously. They seem to know exactly where our forces are at all times." "And how many human ships are involved in these attacks?" "Our best estimates suggest no more than 50 vessels, my emperor." Vorthak's eyes widened. 50 ships have destroyed 17. "Of our fleets?" "Yes, my emperor." Each human vessel appears to be capable of destroying multiple ships simultaneously. Their weapons technology is far beyond anything we have encountered. What about their defenses? Surely they cannot be invincible. General Thrix activated a holographic display showing the battle at Calith. "Our weapons barely scratched their shields, my emperor." The human ship absorbed the combined fire of 30 cruisers without taking damage. Vorthak stood up from his throne, his massive form towering over his advisors. "How is this possible?" Our intelligence report said the humans were weak. They said human ships were barely capable of fighting a single cruiser. The intelligence was wrong, my Emperor. The humans have been deliberately hiding their true capabilities. For how long? We believe for their entire time in the galactic community. Over 2 centuries. Vorthak was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. The hegemony had built its empire on the assumption that no single species could match their military might. The discovery that humans had been capable of destroying them at any point in the past 2 centuries was terrifying. What do you recommend, General? We must negotiate, my Emperor. We cannot win a war against beings this powerful. The hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. With respect, my Emperor, I do not think the humans are inferior. Back on Earth, President Miller was meeting with his top advisors in the Secure Command Center. The room was filled with screens showing human operations across the galaxy. Every screen showed the same thing: human victories, status report, Miller said as he entered the room. All operations are proceeding according to plan, Mr. President, reported General Ross. We've liberated 12 enslaved worlds in the past 24 hours. Vortakian resistance has been minimal. What about civilian casualties? Remarkably low, sir. Our forces have been very careful to avoid collateral damage. The precision of our weapon systems has allowed us to eliminate military targets without harming civilian populations, Miller nodded. This had been one of his biggest concerns. The whole point of revealing humanity's power was to protect innocent lives, not to create more suffering. What about the other species? How are they reacting? Walsh, the head of the diplomatic corps, brought up a report on the main screen. Mixed reactions, sir. Some species are terrified and are calling for action against us. Others are impressed and are asking to join our operations. A few are remaining neutral, waiting to see how things develop. Any threats against Earth itself? Several species have made statements about the need to contain the human threat. The Draconian Empire has been the most vocal, but so far it's just talk, Miller frowned. The Draconians were a proud warrior species that had always resented humanity's growing influence in the galaxy. They had been looking for an excuse to challenge human power for years. Keep monitoring the situation. I want to know if anyone starts moving military assets toward Earth. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Carter was commanding the human task force that had been sent to liberate the Outer Rim worlds. Her flagship, the UES Retribution, was leading a fleet of 12 ships toward the Vortakian stronghold at Nexus Station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vortakian commander, reported her communications officer. Put it through. The main screen showed Admiral Starr, the Vortakian who had commanded the fleet at Calith. He had survived the destruction of his ship and had been given command of the defense of Nexus Station. Human Commander, I am Admiral Starr of the Vortakian hegemony. I wish to discuss terms for the surrender of this station. Lisa was surprised. The Vortakians were known for their stubbornness. They rarely surrendered, preferring to fight to the death rather than admit defeat. I'm listening, Admiral. We have 3,000 slaves at this station, taken from 17 different worlds. We will release them unharmed if you agree to allow our forces to withdraw. Lisa considered the offer. 3,000 innocent beings were worth more than destroying a single military station. But she also knew that allowing the Vortakians to escape would send the wrong message to the galaxy. Here are my terms, Admiral. Release all slaves immediately. Surrender your weapons and prepare to be taken into custody. Your ships will be confiscated and your crews will be processed for war crimes. That is unacceptable. We are offering you a reasonable compromise. Admiral, let me be very clear about something. You are not in a position to negotiate. You have 2 choices: surrender now or watch your station be destroyed around you. Either way, those slaves are going free today. Suz's compound eyes glittered with anger. You cannot threaten us. The hegemony will not be intimidated by a handful of human ships. Admiral, take a look at your sensors. Tell me what you see. There was a pause as Star checked his instruments. When he looked back at the screen, his expression had changed. Impossible. Our sensors show only 12 ships. That's right. 12 ships. The same number that destroyed your main fleet at Caliph. The same number that liberated Vorthek Prime yesterday. The same number that could turn your station into space dust in about 30 seconds. Lisa leaned forward in her command chair. Admiral, the age of Vortakian expansion is over. You can be part of the solution, or you can be part of the debris field. Your choice. The transmission ended as Star cut the connection. Lisa waited, watching the tactical display. She knew the Vortakians were proud, but she also knew they weren't stupid. They had seen what human weapons could do. 5 minutes later, the station's shields dropped and its weapons powered down. The slaves were released and the Vortakian forces surrendered without firing a shot. As the rescue operations began. Emperor Vorthak had made his decision. If the humans wanted a war, he would give them the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. The Vortakian hegemony controlled 300 worlds and commanded the largest military force in known space. Number. Single species, no matter how advanced, could stand against the full might of his empire. The emperor stood in the war room of his palace, watching as his generals prepared for the largest military operation in Vortakian history. Holographic displays showed ships gathering from every corner of hegemony space. 10,000 vessels of war were converging on the Nexus system, where the humans had humiliated his forces. Report on fleet status, Vorthak commanded. General Thrix stepped forward, his armor gleaming under the harsh lights. All battle groups are en route, my emperor. We have assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 4,000 heavy cruisers, 3,000 destroyers, 2,000 support vessels, and 1,000 assault ships. And the Worldbreaker? The fortress ship is operational and ready for combat, my emperor. Its main weapon can destroy entire planets. No ship in existence can withstand its firepower. Vorthak felt satisfaction flow through him. The Worldbreaker was the pride of the hegemony fleet, a massive ship the size of a small moon. It had been built over 50 years and represented the peak of Vortakian military technology. Nothing in the galaxy could match its destructive power. What about the humans? How many ships are they bringing to this battle? Our intelligence suggests they have 12 ships at Nexus Station, my emperor. The same number they have used in all their previous operations. 12 ships against 10,000. Vorthak's mandibles clicked with amusement. Even humans cannot overcome such odds. What the Emperor didn't know was that the humans had been watching his preparations. Deep in space, invisible to Vortakian sensors, human observation posts tracked every ship movement, every communication, every strategic decision. Humanity had learned long ago that information was often more valuable than firepower. Admiral Kate Stevens sat in the command center on Earth, watching the data streams from the spy satellites. The Vortakian fleet was massive, larger than anything the galaxy had seen since the ancient wars. But size wasn't everything. Analysis complete, Admiral, reported her intelligence chief, Colonel Mark Peterson. The Vortakians are bringing everything. They have, this is their attempt to end the war with a single decisive battle. What about their formation? Standard hegemony tactics. The Worldbreaker in the center, surrounded by defensive screens of smaller ships. They're planning to overwhelm our forces with sheer numbers while the fortress ship provides heavy fire support. Kate studied the tactical display. The Vortakian plan was exactly what she had expected. They thought like conquerors, believing that more ships meant certain victory. They had never learned to think like predators. Recommendations? We stick to the plan, Admiral. 12 ships should be more than enough. Kate nodded. To any other species, the idea of 12 ships facing 10,000 would seem like suicide. But the Vortakians still didn't understand what they were fighting. They thought they were facing another galactic species. They had no idea they were about to fight the children of Earth. Captain Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the massive Vortakian fleet emerge from hyperspace. The Nexus system suddenly filled with thousands of enemy ships. their hulls gleaming like metal insects in the light of the local star. At the center of the formation was the Worldbreaker, a ship so large it had its own gravity field. "Tactical analysis," Lisa ordered. 10,347 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell. The Fortress ship is reading as 12 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide. Its main weapon appears to be a Planet Killer-class plasma cannon. What about our fleet status? All 12 ships are ready for combat, Captain. All systems are operating at full capacity. Lisa looked around the bridge at her crew. These were people who had spent their careers rescuing civilians and providing humanitarian aid. Now they were about to fight the largest space battle in galactic history. But none of them looked afraid. They looked determined. "Open a channel to the Vortakian fleet." The main screen flickered and showed Emperor Vorthak himself, sitting on his throne aboard the Worldbreaker. The massive insectoid ruler looked confident, almost amused. "Human Commander, I am Emperor Vorthak, ruler of the hegemony. You have interfered with our expansion for the last time. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." "Emperor Vorthak, this is Captain Lisa Carter of the Human Protectorate Fleet. You are guilty of enslaving innocent species and attacking peaceful worlds. Surrender your fleet, and you will be treated according to galactic law." Vorthak's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. "You dare demand my surrender? Look around you, human. I have brought 10,000 ships to destroy your pathetic fleet. You are outnumbered 800 to 1. Numbers don't matter when you're fighting the wrong kind of enemy," Lisa replied calmly. "This is your last chance to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The only blood that will be shed today is yours." Vorthak cut the transmission. Lisa turned to her tactical officer. "All ships, this is Retribution Actual. The Vortakians have chosen violence. You are authorized to engage. Show them what happens when you threaten the innocent in front of Earth's children." What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries. The 12 human ships didn't charge into battle like traditional warriors. They didn't form defensive lines or try to protect each other. Instead, they moved like a pack of hunters who had found their prey. The UES Retribution led the attack, its weapon systems coming online with devastating effect. The ship that had spent years rescuing civilians revealed its true nature. Hidden weapon ports opened along its hull, releasing beams of energy that could crack moons. The first volley destroyed 50 Vortakian cruisers in seconds, but it wasn't just the firepower that shocked the Vortakians. It was how the human ships moved. They didn't fly through space like normal vessels, they danced. Each ship moved with perfect precision. Every turn and acceleration calculated to avoid enemy fire while positioning for the next attack. Lieutenant Danny Park, flying the fighter UES Hawk, found himself facing a squadron of Vortakian interceptors. The enemy pilots were skilled, but they fought like they had been trained to fight other galactic species. Danny fought like he had been trained to survive on a death world. He didn't try to outfly the Vortakians. Instead, he let them chase him, drawing them into a trap. When they were perfectly positioned, he spun his fighter around and opened fire, destroying all 6 enemy ships in a single pass. "This is impossible," General Thrick said, watching his fleet die around him. "Human ships cannot move like that. Their weapons cannot be that powerful." "They've been lying to us," Emperor Vorthak replied, his voice filled with rage. "They've been hiding their true capabilities for centuries." "Orders, my Emperor?" "Activate the Worldbreaker's main weapon. Destroy them all." The massive fortress ship's main cannon began to charge, energy building to levels that could sterilize a planet. But before it could fire, something impossible happened. A single human fighter, piloted by Lieutenant Tom Bradley, broke through the defensive screens and flew directly at the Worldbreaker. "Human fighter, you cannot penetrate our shields?" broadcast the Worldbreaker's captain. "Your weapons are too weak." Tom's response was broadcast on all frequencies. "Who said anything about weapons?" The young pilot flew his fighter directly through the Worldbreaker's shields, using a technique that should have been impossible. His ship's special resonance field allowed it to pass through energy barriers by matching their frequency. It was technology that humanity had developed centuries ago, but had never revealed. Tom flew his fighter into the Worldbreaker's main reactor chamber and activated his ship's self-destruct sequence. The resulting explosion didn't just destroy the fighter. It caused a cascade failure that tore the massive fortress ship apart from the inside. The Worldbreaker, pride of the Vortakian fleet, was destroyed by a single human pilot who gave his life to protect innocent people he had never met. The death of their flagship broke the Vortakian fleet's morale. Ships that had fought bravely began to retreat. Others surrendered outright. Within 18 minutes of the battle's start, the largest military force in galactic history was in full retreat. Admiral Kate Stevens, monitoring the battle from Earth, opened a channel to the fleeing Vortakians. "Attention Vortakian forces, this is Admiral Stevens of Earth Command. The hegemony's expansion is over. Any ship that continues to resist will be destroyed. Any ship that surrenders will be treated according to galactic law. You have 60 seconds to decide." One by one, the Vortakian ships powered down their weapons and surrendered. The Great War that was supposed to establish hegemony dominance over the galaxy had lasted less than 20 minutes. Emperor Vorthak, now aboard an escape pod after his flagship's destruction, sent the final message to the human fleet. "This is not over, humans. Other species will see what you have done. They will unite against you. The galaxy will not accept your dominance," Captain Carter responded from the bridge of the Retribution. "Emperor, we're not trying to dominate anyone. We're trying to protect everyone." The news of the hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major civilization knew that humanity had destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history using only 12 ships. The impossible had become reality, and the old order was crumbling. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in his office on Station Unity, watching the emergency sessions of the Galactic Council through his window. The massive station was busier than he had ever seen it. Ships from dozens of species were arriving constantly, their representatives desperate to understand what humanity's victory meant for the future. His door chimed, and Veltar entered carrying another stack of requests. The nervous alien's hands were shaking as he set the data pads on Jake's desk. "Ambassador, we have received 47 formal requests for meetings today. The Altarian Republic wants to discuss a mutual defense treaty. The Kalari are asking to join something called the Human Protectorate. The Zephyrians want to know if they can purchase human technology." Jake picked up the first data pad and read through the requests. Most were exactly what he had expected. Species that had seen humanity's power wanted to be on the winning side. Others were scared and wanted reassurance that humans wouldn't turn their weapons on peaceful worlds. What about the opposition? The Draconian Empire is calling for a galaxy-wide alliance against human expansion. They say humanity represents an existential threat to all other species. So far, they have gained support from the Rigelian Confederacy and the Outer System Collective. Jake nodded. The Draconians had always been the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They were natural warriors who respected only strength, but they also feared any power greater than their own. The fact that they were organizing resistance was not surprising. Schedule meetings with the friendly delegations first. We need to build support before dealing with the hostile ones. Meanwhile, on the liberated world of Caliph the Kalari, people were experiencing something they had never known: safety. For the first time in their long history, they didn't have to worry about being attacked by stronger species. Human ships patrolled their system, and human marines helped rebuild their damaged cities. Dr. Alex Turner was working in one of the temporary medical centers, treating Kalari who had been injured during the Vortakian occupation. The peaceful philosophers had suffered terribly under their captors, but they were recovering with remarkable speed thanks to human medical technology. "Dr. Turner," called out Kalthara, a Kalari elder who had become the unofficial leader of her people. "May I speak with you?" Alex looked up from the patient he was treating, a young Kalari whose arm had been broken by Vortakian slavers. "Of course, Elder Kalthara. What can I do for you?" "My people have been discussing our future. We want to formally request membership in the Human Protectorate, Alex was surprised. The Kalari were proud of their independence and had never shown interest in joining larger political organizations. Are you sure? Joining the Protectorate means accepting human leadership in military and security matters. Doctor, we have seen what happens when peaceful species try to defend themselves against predators. We have also seen what happens when the children of Earth decide to protect us. The choice is simple, Alex smiled. I'll pass your request along to Ambassador Morrison. I think he'll be very pleased. On Earth, President Miller was meeting with the Global Defense Council to discuss the new reality facing humanity. The conference room was filled with tension as the leaders of Earth civilization grappled with their new role in the galaxy. The situation reports are clear, said General Ross. Every day we receive dozens of requests from species wanting to join the Protectorate. But we also have intelligence suggesting that several major powers are planning to unite against us. What kind of threat are we looking at? Miller asked. The Draconian Empire is the primary concern. They're reaching out to other militaristic species, trying to form what they're calling the Galactic Defense Alliance. Their stated goal is to contain human expansion and protect galactic sovereignty. Dr. Walsh, the head of the diplomatic corps, brought up a holographic display showing galactic political alignments. We're seeing the galaxy split into 3 camps. Those who want to join us, those who want to fight us, and those who are trying to stay neutral. What about the Galactic Council? The Council is essentially powerless now. After their failure to act during the hegemony crisis, most species have lost faith in their ability to provide leadership. Some are calling for the Council to be dissolved. Entirely, Miller studied the display, watching the shifting political landscape. What do you recommend? We need to be proactive, Dr. Walsh replied. We should formally establish the Human Protectorate as a legitimate political entity. Offer membership to any species that wants to join, but make it clear that membership comes with responsibilities as well as benefits. What kind of responsibilities? Democratic governance, protection of individual rights, peaceful resolution of disputes, and contribution to collective defense. Basically, the same values that humanity has been promoting for centuries. Miller nodded. And for those who don't want to join? We leave them alone, General Ross said firmly. We don't conquer, we don't force anyone to accept our protection. But we also don't trade with them, we don't share our technology, and we don't help them when they get into trouble. What about active threats? If anyone attacks Protectorate worlds or enslaves innocent people, we respond with overwhelming force. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. 3 months after the Battle of Nexus, the galaxy had settled into its new reality. The Human Protectorate had grown to include 47 species, ranging from the artistic Kalari to the industrious crystalline collective. These worlds enjoyed unprecedented peace and prosperity under human protection. Captain Lisa Carter, now promoted to Admiral of the Protectorate Fleet, commanded operations from the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's new flagship. The massive vessel served as both a symbol of human power and a mobile command center for peacekeeping operations. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Centauri Mining Consortium, reported her communications officer. Pirates are attacking their facilities in the Outer Rim. Are the Centaurians members of the Protectorate? No, Admiral. They chose to remain independent. Lisa considered her options. The old humanity would have rushed to help regardless of political affiliation. But the galaxy had taught humans some hard lessons about the cost of unlimited charity. Send a standard response. Inform them that Protectorate forces are available to assist member worlds only. Suggest they consider joining if they want our protection. Yes, Admiral. It might seem harsh, but Lisa knew it was necessary. The galaxy had to understand that security came with responsibility. The Protectorate wasn't a free service. It was a community of species working together for mutual benefit. The Draconian Empire, meanwhile, had succeeded in forming their Galactic Defense Alliance. 12 species had joined their coalition, united by fear of human dominance. They had assembled a significant military force and were making aggressive statements about containing human expansion. Emperor Draken himself, the massive reptilian ruler of the Draconian Empire, sent a message to Earth demanding that humanity withdraw from all protectorate worlds and submit to galactic oversight. President Miller's response was brief and to the point: no. The standoff continued for months, with both sides building up their forces and preparing for what many believed would be an inevitable war. But the conflict never came. The Galactic Defense Alliance discovered the same thing the Vortakians had learned. It was one thing to threaten humanity, and quite another to actually fight them. Small incidents began to reveal the true balance of power. When Alliance ships tried to blockade Protectorate trade routes, they found their own ships mysteriously disabled by system malfunctions. When Alliance intelligence tried to infiltrate human facilities, their agents simply disappeared. When Alliance leaders made threatening speeches, they discovered embarrassing personal information being broadcast on public networks. The message was clear. Humanity was playing a different game entirely. They didn't need to threaten or posture. They simply acted quietly and efficiently to protect their interests and those of their allies. 1 year after the Hegemony War, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood before a very different Galactic Council. The old chamber had been replaced by a new facility on New Geneva, the human research station that had become the de facto capital of Protectorate. Representatives from 63 species sat in the chamber, discussing trade agreements, scientific cooperation, and collective security. The old arguments about committees and procedures had been replaced by practical discussions about getting things done. The Protectorate has achieved what the old council never could, Jake said, addressing the assembly. We have created a galaxy where the strong protect the weak, where science and art flourish, where conflicts are resolved through dialogue rather than violence. He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings who had once feared humanity. We didn't want to rule you. We wanted to be your partners. But the universe forced us to become your protectors instead. We accept that responsibility, and we will fulfill it to the best of our ability.